7 o'clock in the morning. My alarm clock hadn't rung yet, but I was awake, always waking up at the same time, no matter what time I'd gone to bed the night before. Old age? What can I do? I slowly sat up on the bed, feeling my joints aching. When you're 78, every morning starts with an inventory of aches and pains. My apartment was small but cozy, purposely chosen in a quiet, peaceful neighborhood far from the hustle and bustle of downtown Millville, where my company's offices were located. No one here knew me as Winona Thorndyke, owner of Thorndyke Enterprises. Here I was simply Mrs. Thorndyke, an elderly widow living on a pension. The apartment was still modest, but it was nice. Old furniture from my parents, a few antiques that weren't conspicuous but were prized by connoisseurs. Harold had always said that real wealth wasn't to be flaunted, and I'd adopted that wisdom after his death when I decided to check on my children. Putting on my robe, I headed to the kitchen, where I put on the kettle and pulled out my favorite cup, a gift from my husband for our 30th anniversary. Simple in appearance, but made by a famous craftsman and worth more than my children could imagine. They never asked about such things. To them, I was just an old woman with outdated tastes and habits. My morning ritual remained the same. Tea, toast with homemade jam that I brought from my country house, another secret from the children, blood pressure tablets. While the kettle boiled, I went to the window. Millville was still dozing, but would soon be awake. I loved this town, where I'd been born, married, had children, and where I'd buried my husband 15 years ago. After breakfast, I changed into what the kids called Grandma's uniform. A simple, but good quality gray skirt just below my knees, a pale blue blouse made of good cotton, a cardigan, and comfortable low-heeled shoes. She wore minimal makeup, only powder and a little lipstick, gathering her gray hair into a simple bundle. The mirror reflected the woman my children expected to see. Modest, unassuming, almost invisible. At 8:30 the phone rang. Michel, my eldest son, who called rarely, usually with some request or to report on his progress. "Mom, are you awake?" His voice sounded impatient, as if he had more important things to do than talk to me. "Of course I'm awake, Michelle. I get up at 7. How are you? How's Serenity? How are the children?" "I'm fine, Mom. Listen, Serenity was supposed to call you. She didn't call?" "No, sweetie. We haven't talked in, let's see, 2 weeks?" A sigh on the other end of the line. I could almost hear him rolling his eyes. "Okay, whatever. I got a promotion, Mom. I'm a senior partner at the firm now. We're having a family dinner tomorrow night, 18:30, at the Aurora. You know that restaurant? Do I know the Aurora?" My lips stretched into a smile. "Of course I do. Congratulations on your promotion, honey. That's wonderful news." "Yes, yes, thank you. So, Serenity insists that you come. Family event and all." "Serenity insists" is, of course, a lie. My sister-in-law hated me, seeing me as a reminder of her husband's simple origins, a stain on the impeccable social image she had so carefully crafted. "Of course I'll come. I'd love to." "I will, just Mom." He stammered, and I knew what was coming next. "Wear something, decent, okay? It's a very expensive restaurant, and there will be important people there." I looked at my granny uniform and nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "I'll try to look nice, Michelle." "Great. I'll see you tomorrow." He disconnected without waiting for my response. Hanging up the phone, I sighed. The promotion was really good news. Michelle had always been ambitious. As a child, he'd dreamed of becoming a famous lawyer, defending the innocent, fighting for justice. Now he was a corporate lawyer, helping the rich get even richer. Not exactly what his father and I had dreamed for him, but he seemed happy, at least outwardly. At 9 o'clock, I left the house. A neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, was watering the flowers on the porch. "Good morning, Winona. Where are you off to so early?" "To work, Edith. Where else?" I smiled. Mrs. Jenkins was the only one who knew my secret. We'd been friends for nearly 30 years. "Your folks didn't call again?" She shook her head. "I don't understand these young people. Parents were respected in our day." "It's all right, Edith. Michelle just called. There's a family dinner at the Aurora tomorrow." Mrs. Jenkins snorted. "At your restaurant? And they still don't know?" "And they won't know if I can prevent it." "Winona Thorndyke, you are the most stubborn woman I know." I just smiled back and walked to the bus stop. I could have taken a cab or even a private driver, but I preferred public transportation. It was part of my disguise, and besides, I liked people watching. 30 minutes later, I got off in the business district of Millville and headed toward an unremarkable building with a sign that read Thorndike Enterprises. The company was officially owned by a trust set up by my late husband, but it was actually owned by me. After Harold's death, I took over the management, although the children were unaware of this, thinking I was receiving a modest pension and small dividends. In fact, Thorndike Enterprises owned properties all over town, including the building that housed the Aurora restaurant. The secretary met me in the lobby. "Good morning, Mrs. Thorndike. Mr. Flinch is waiting for you in the conference room. The quarterly report is ready." "Thank you, Betty." In the conference room, Dorian Flinch, my manager, was laying out papers, standing up as I entered. "Good morning, Winona. You look grandmotherly today." "Shut up, Dorian," I said angrily. "Better tell me how things are going at the restaurant." Dorian was one of the few people who knew both my personalities, having worked with me for 10 years now, and being the only one I trusted completely in business. The restaurant was thriving. Revenue is up 12% over last quarter. The new chef is living up to expectations. The critics are loving it. That's good. What about that wine supplier who tried to cheat us? Replaced. Found a small family-owned winery, great quality, reasonable prices. We discussed business until lunch, after which I changed into another outfit stored in the office. An elegant pantsuit, pearl necklace, heeled shoes, more careful makeup, and more elaborate hair. Dorian watched the transformation with a familiar chuckle. "Why do you keep up this masquerade, Winona? Why don't you just tell the kids the truth?" I sighed, applying the final touches of makeup. When Harold died, they'd been so preoccupied with dividing up the inheritance that they hadn't even noticed my grief. Michelle insisted I sell the house and move into a nursing home, for my own good. Lovegood wanted me to give him control of the company, believing me incapable of handling the business. I turned to Dorian. "I decided to teach them a lesson, to see how they would treat me if they thought I was poor and dependent. Turned out to be pretty lousy. And all these years you didn't tell them the truth out of pride?" "Out of curiosity, Dorian. I wondered how low they could go. And they haven't hit rock bottom yet, believe me. But you suffer for it. I can see how their neglect hurts you. I'd suffer more if I knew they were pretending to be loving children just for the money." We arrived at the Aurora in time for lunch. The restaurant was housed in a historic building downtown, with exquisite decor, impeccable service, top chefs, everything Harold and I had dreamed of 30 years ago when we first started the business. The staff greeted me with respect but without subservience. Everyone here knew who I was. "Mrs. Thorndike, there's a little problem in the wine cellar. Can you take a look?" the sommelier asked. I went down to the cellar, where the problem turned out to be minor. Mislabeling on a new batch of wines, solved in 10 minutes. Then I checked the kitchen, chatted with the chef about the new menu, and walked around the room watching the waiters work. Back in the office by 3 o'clock, I changed back into my granny uniform. Before I left, Dorian reminded me, "There's a big reservation tomorrow for the banquet in the small room. And then there's that family dinner. I know, Michelle got a promotion. They'll be celebrating at the Aurora." Dorian froze. "Your family? Here? Winona? Are you sure this is a good idea?" "I didn't pick the place. Ironic, don't you think? What are you going to do?" "Same thing I always do. Play the role of the humble, invisible old lady." "What if one of the staff recognizes you?" "We'll warn everyone. Say it's a service check or something." Dorian shook his head. "One day this game is going to end badly." "Maybe. But for now, I wonder how long I can keep it going." That evening, already at home, the phone rang. This time it was Serenity, whose voice, as always, sounded like she was doing me a favor by talking to me. "Winona, Michelle said he called you this morning. Are you coming over for dinner tomorrow?" "Of course, darling. I already told Michelle." "Good." Pause. "Listen, Winona, this is a very important event for Michelle. His colleagues will be there, people from high society. Do you know what I mean?" "Not really, Serenity. Explain, please." I heard her sigh in annoyance. "I mean, you need to look, appropriate. Don't wear those old clothes of yours, and please don't tell your good old days stories." No one's interested. I swallowed my resentment. No one in my family was interested in my past, my stories, my life. To them, I was just an old woman tolerated out of a sense of duty. I'll try not to embarrass you, Serenity. Good. Also, Lovegood is coming with the children, too. And please don't start asking him about his work. You know how he doesn't like to talk about it. Lovegood, my youngest son, became even more estranged from me after his father died. He worked in finance, was always busy, rarely called. His wife left him 5 years ago, leaving him with 2 children, after which he became even more withdrawn. Of course, Serenity, I'll be on my best behavior. I'll be on my best behavior. See you tomorrow then. 18:30. She disconnected without waiting for my answer, just like Michelle, the apple of the tree. I went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep for a long time, thinking about tomorrow night, about how my children would look right through me, talk to me condescendingly, as if I were a child or a person who was not right in the head, about how my grandchildren would avoid talking to me, embarrassed by poor grandma. It was painful. Even after all these years, it still hurt. But there was another feeling too: curiosity, anticipation. How long would this play last? What would happen when the truth came out? How would they react when they found out I'd been watching their true faces all these years? Tomorrow was going to be an interesting night, perhaps even a turning point. After all, they were going to my restaurant, my turf, and something told me the masquerade couldn't last forever. With that thought, I finally fell asleep. It was going to be a busy day. I woke up even earlier than usual at 6 in the morning with thoughts of the evening ahead. Family dinner at my own restaurant. Irony of fate, no other way. I didn't believe in coincidence, but sometimes life threw me such surprises that I could only throw up my hands. After taking a shower and drinking a cup of strong tea, I pulled out of the closet my work outfit, a dark blue suit with a knee-length skirt, a white blouse, and pearl earrings. I always kept this outfit ironed and ready, though I usually change clothes in the office. Today was an exception. I wanted to be at the restaurant as early as possible to get everything ready for the evening. After packing my suit in my travel bag, I put on my grandmother's uniform and left the house at 7:30. Mrs. Jenkins, as usual, was already fiddling in her garden. "Early today, Winona," she remarked, looking at me over her glasses. "Big day?" "You could say that." I stopped at the gate. "The family is celebrating Michelle's promotion at my restaurant tonight." "Oh my God." Edith straightened up, holding her lower back. "What are you going to do?" "I haven't decided yet. Maybe nothing. I'll see what the circumstances are." "Winona Thorndyke," she shook her head, "you are either the wisest or the most reckless woman I know." "Probably both," I grinned. "Wish me luck, Edith." "Good luck to you, dear. And may your children finally see the light." Today, I decided to take a cab instead of the bus. I was running out of time and I had to stop at the office before I went to the restaurant. The driver, a young guy with a fancy beard, gave me a bored look when I gave him the address of Thorndyke Enterprises. Probably mistook me for a secretary or a cleaning lady. That was fine with me. The office was quiet. Most of the employees were in by 9. I quickly changed my clothes, did my makeup more carefully, and put my hair in a neat bun. The difference was striking. No one would have suspected that a modest pensioner and a confident businesswoman were one and the same person. Dorian was waiting for me in his office. My manager looked impeccable as always. A strict suit, a perfectly tied tie, not a single extra crease. He stood up as I entered. "Good morning, Winona. You look worried." "I have my reasons." I sat down in the chair across from his desk. "My children and grandchildren are having dinner at the Aurora tonight." "I remember." He sat down and folded his hands on the table. "Have you decided how you're going to proceed?" "Not yet, no. But I need to warn the staff so no one gives me away." "Reasonable," Dorian nodded. "I've already made a list of everyone who will be working the evening shift. We'll have to brief everyone." "Okay," I sighed. "What's on the schedule today?" "First, there's a problem with the air conditioning in the small room. The technicians will be in at 11. Second, a meeting with the new seafood supplier at 12. Third, we need to check on preparations for next week's fundraiser." "Not much to go on," I remarked. "Also," Dorian paused, "the city council called. The Historic Buildings Commission wants to inspect our restaurant next week. Something to do with the historic registry." "All right, make the arrangements." I stood up. Let's go to the restaurant. You can fill me in on the details on the way. We took my company car, an unremarkable black sedan with tinted windows. Thomas, my regular driver for 8 years, was behind the wheel. He knew about my double life and never asked too many questions. Dorian sat next to me in the back seat and opened a clipboard. The reservation for tonight is for Michelle Thorndike, table for 8, 1830. He showed me the screen. I've arranged to give them the best table by the window. Who will serve them? Frederick. He's only been with us 6 months, and he's never seen you as, an old lady. That's fine, but he'll need to explain the situation too. Absolutely. I'm going to give a brief briefing to all the staff at 16 o'clock, before the evening shift starts. I nodded, looking out the window at the streets of Millville floating by. The city was changing before my eyes. The old houses were being torn down, replaced by glass skyscrapers. But the downtown area, where our restaurant was located, retained its historic appearance, which gave Aurora a special charm. You realize this can't go on forever, don't you? Dorian suddenly asked. What's that? This double life you're playing. Sooner or later, the truth will come out. Maybe, I shrugged. But for now, I'm happy with the status quo. Are you punishing them or yourself? His voice was quiet, but it sounded concerned. I wondered, was I really punishing my children by keeping the truth from them? Or was it a way to protect myself from disappointment? I didn't know. Probably both, I finally answered. But tonight it will be especially interesting to watch them in my restaurant. Don't you want to shock them? Reveal your secret in a spectacular way? No, I shook my head. That would be too melodramatic. I just want to see how they behave. The car stopped at the back entrance of the restaurant. It was almost 9 in the morning and the staff was already getting ready for the workday. The chefs were starting to prepare preparations for the lunch menu. The waiters were setting up tables, and the bartenders were checking the stock. Dorian and I walked through the kitchen, saying hello to the staff. Chef Raymond, a Frenchman with a challenging temperament but brilliant taste, immediately took his mind off his business to approach me. Madame Thorndike, I'd like to discuss tonight's special menu. I have some ideas. Of course, Raymond, I smiled. Give me half an hour to take care of some urgent business and I'm all yours. He bowed and went back to his team, dispensing instructions in a loud, commanding voice. In my office, a small but elegantly furnished room next to the kitchen, I went through the morning's mail and reports while Dorian set up a meeting with the air conditioning technicians. An hour later, we walked around the restaurant together, checking every detail from the cleanliness of the tablecloths to the shine of the glasses. The Thorndike's table must be spotless, I reminded the head waiter. Of course, ma'am, he nodded. Mr. Flinch has already given instructions. Your family will be pleased. They don't know it's my restaurant. I lowered my voice. And they won't have to find out tonight. It's a sort of, test. The waiter raised his eyebrows in surprise, but quickly pulled himself together. I understand, ma'am. It will be done. The air conditioning technicians arrived at 11. The problem was more serious than we thought. The main unit had to be replaced, which meant that the small hall would be unavailable until at least tomorrow. We'll have to move the reservations from the small room to the main room, Dorian said, looking over the list of evening orders. It's not critical, but it will require rearranging. You take care of it, I nodded. I'm going to Raymond's to discuss the menu. The chef was waiting for me in the kitchen, surrounded by samples of his new dishes. We spent half an hour tasting and discussing each one. Raymond was a true artist in cooking, and I appreciated his creativity, although sometimes I had to restrain his most extravagant ideas. For tonight's menu, I suggest adding the signature lamb with rosemary, he said, handing me a plate of perfectly cooked meat. And perhaps a new dessert, chocolate fondant with lavender ice cream. I tried the lamb. It melted in my mouth. The combination of spices was flawless. Lamb, yes, definitely. But be careful with the lavender in the dessert. Not everyone will appreciate such an unusual flavor. If you say so, madam. He bowed slightly, but I could see the disagreement in his eyes. Raymond was always confident in his culinary decisions. After lunch, which I spent in the company of Dorian and the new seafood supplier, a smiling young man offering organic oysters from local farms, we were finally able to get busy preparing for my family's evening visit. So, Dorian said when we were alone in my office, how do we proceed? Give the staff a briefing. Pay special attention to Frederick. He'll be their caterer. Explain that this is my family, but they don't know about my business and they don't have to find out today. And you? What role will you play? The role of grandmother as usual, I smiled. I'll arrive separately, as if I were just invited to a family dinner. And if any of the staff happens to address you as the owner, they shouldn't. You and I will see to that. Besides, the evening shift is mostly new employees, and they've only seen me in a business suit, not as a modest pensioner. Dorian tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. You could use this situation to finally reveal the truth. I could, I agreed, but I'm not sure I'm ready for it yet. We'll see how the evening goes. Okay, he stood up. I'll go get the staff ready. What about you? I'm going to do the menu for next week's fundraiser, and I think I'll go through the restaurant one more time, check every little detail. I sat alone for a while, staring out the window at the busy street. My thoughts revolved around the upcoming evening. What did I want to prove by continuing this game? Was it just petty revenge for years of neglect? Or for the way my children had divided Harold's inheritance without even asking my opinion? Perhaps it was in part. But there was another reason I wanted to know if they truly loved me, or only the image of a mother they'd created in their heads. A mother who had always been in the background in the shadow of a successful father. A mother who never crossed me, always supportive, always just a mom. When Harold died, something broke inside of me. Not only because of the loss of a loved one, but because of how quickly my children tried to take control of my life. It was as if without my husband, I became incapacitated. Lovegood offered to take back control of the company. It's too complicated for you, Mom. Michelle insisted on selling the house. You need something smaller, Mom. You're on your own now. None of them asked what I wanted, so I decided to teach them a lesson. I sold our family home, but I didn't buy a small apartment like they expected. Instead, I bought a penthouse downtown and a modest apartment on the outskirts for my second self. Officially handed over the management of the company to a trust, but actually took the helm myself, and watched as my children gradually stopped considering me, seeing me as nothing more than a burden, an old woman with outdated views. The sound of the door opening snapped me out of my reverie. Dorian was back. Everything's ready, he reported. I've spoken to the staff. Everyone's been warned and promises to keep your secret. Good, I stood up. Then I think I'll go home. I have to get ready for tonight. You sure you don't want to stay here? You could change in the office like you always do. No, I shook my head. It's too risky. Maybe one of the kids will get here early and see me here. Makes sense, Dorian agreed. I'll see you tonight then. I'll be there to make sure everything goes smoothly. Thank you. I smiled at him. I don't know what I would have done without you. You'd be fine, he said seriously. You're stronger than you think, Winona. I changed into my granny uniform and hailed a cab home. On the way, I thought about what to wear tonight. Serenity had insisted on a decent outfit, but what exactly did she mean by that? I had a few elegant dresses I'd never worn in front of the children. Maybe it was time to show them that an old mother could still look stylish. At home, the first thing I did was check the mail. Among the flyers and bills, I found a postcard from my oldest granddaughter, Michelle's daughter. Dear Grandma, thank you for your birthday present. Mom says I should write you, though I could have just called. Kisses, Emily. Not a word about whether she liked the gift, an antique brooch I'd gotten from my grandmother. Probably thought it was old-fashioned and put it away in a faraway drawer. I took a long shower, thinking about the evening ahead. No matter what happens, I must remain calm and dignified. Even if the kids behave inappropriately, I won't stoop to their level. After all, I am their mother, and the owner of the restaurant where they'll be dining, even though they don't know it. I chose a dark blue dress, austere but elegant, with a pearl necklace Harold had given me years ago. Low-heeled shoes, fashionable enough but comfortable for my age. I did my makeup more carefully than usual, but without excess. I put my hair in a simple but neat style. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who looked her age but with dignity. Not a rich businesswoman, but not the pathetic old lady my children seem to think I was. Just Winona Thorndyke, a woman with history and character. At 16 o'clock, Dorian called. Everything is ready, he reported. The staff is instructed, the table is set. Frederick has understood the task and promises to be attentive. Thank you, Dorian. I'll be there at 18:30. Get there a little early. Michelle booked a table for 18:30, but they may show up earlier. Okay, I agreed. I'll be there at 6. I hung up the phone and took another look at myself in the mirror. Tonight could be a turning point in my relationship with the kids. Maybe it was time to stop playing a role and show them who I really was. Or maybe just to see how far they were willing to go in their neglect. Either way, I was ready for this evening. And Aurora was ready to host the Thorndyke family, too. I arrived at the Aurora restaurant 20 minutes before the appointed time. The cab stopped at the main entrance, the marble steps, the columns, the elegantly engraved glass doors. My brainchild, my little palace that Harold and I had so lovingly created. I paid the driver and stood for a moment in front of the entrance, admiring the facade. The doorman, a new young man I'd only seen a couple of times, hurried to open the door in front of me. He didn't recognize me, which was for the best. Inside, the restaurant shone. Soft lighting reflected in the crystal chandeliers, snow-white tablecloths contrasted with the dark wood of the furniture, fresh flowers and silverware on every table. The receptionist, an elegant woman in an austere suit, met me at the entrance. Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation? I'm here to see the Thorndyke family, I replied. I don't know if they're here yet. She checked the table plans on the clipboard. Thorndykes. Yeah, the reservation's for 18:30. They haven't arrived yet. Let me show you to your table. I followed her across the room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Dorian talking to the bartender. He saw me and gave me a subtle nod. It was under control. The table for my family was one of the best, by the big window overlooking the park, in a cozy alcove that provided some privacy, but still gave me a view of the whole room. Would you like something while you wait? The receptionist asked. A glass of white wine, please, Chardonnay. It will be brought. She left, and in a minute the waiter appeared, Frederick, as promised. A tall young man with perfect posture and impeccable manners. Good evening, ma'am. Chardonnay. He placed a glass in front of me. Anything else? Not yet, thank you. I took a sip. The wine was excellent, as always. I'd personally picked it from the wine merchant a month ago. Gradually, the restaurant filled up. It was Friday night and all the tables were reserved. The crowd was diverse. Business people celebrating the end of the work week, couples on dates, families celebrating special occasions. Aurora attracted those who appreciated not only fine cuisine, but also a special atmosphere of elegance without pretentiousness. At exactly 18:30, I saw my family enter the restaurant. In front were Michelle and Serenity, both impeccably dressed. He in an expensive suit, she in an evening dress with a little too much jewelry. Behind them were their children, 17-year-old Emily and 14-year-old Jason, both with expressions of bored superiority on their faces. Following was Lovegood, my youngest son, thin and tense, with his twins, 12-year-olds Oliver and Amanda. The receptionist escorted them to their table. Michelle spotted me and flashed me a smile. Mom, you're already here, punctual as always. I stood up to greet them. Good evening, it's so good to see you all. Serenity gave me an appraising look. I saw her eyes linger on my dress, my necklace, my hair. She clearly expected to see me in my usual grandmother uniform, and was a little surprised. Winona, she kissed the air next to my cheek discreetly. You look decent. Thank you, darling, I smiled. So do you. Emily and Jason reluctantly said hello, clearly embarrassed by me. Oliver and Amanda were more sincere. They ran up to hug me. Grandma, Amanda exclaimed. Do you have a new dress? Yes, honey, I patted her on the head. It's special for tonight. It's beautiful, Oliver said. And you look pretty too. Lovegood wrinkled his nose. Children, be quiet. We're in a decent place. We sat down at the table. I was between Amanda and Jason across from Serenity. Frederick came over to take the drink order. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frederick, and I will be your waiter tonight. What can I get you? Michelle ordered a bottle of expensive wine, Serenity ordered mineral water, and the children ordered non-alcoholic cocktails. Lovegood asked for whiskey. And you, ma'am? Frederick turned to me. I already have wine, thank you. I raised my glass. Serenity gave me a disapproving look. Winona, have you already started without us? I came a little early, I explained. I decided to have a glass while I waited. It's good wine. She was clearly displeased. I hope you're not going to drink too much tonight. Remember what happened at Christmas? Nothing much happened at Christmas. I had 2 glasses of wine and told some stories about Michelle's youth, which embarrassed him a little in front of his coworkers. But in Serenity's eyes, I guess that was the unpardonable sin. Don't worry, darling. I took another sip. I'll behave myself. Frederick returned with the drinks and presented the menu. Raymond had added several new dishes especially for tonight, including the lamb with rosemary, which I had approved the night before. The chef recommends the lamb tonight, Frederick said. It's a new dish on our menu, and it's delicious. Oh, I love lamb, Serenity said. It sounds wonderful. Michelle studied the wine list. It's an impressive collection. I think a good red would go well with the lamb. What do you recommend? Frederick professionally explained several options. Michelle chose one of the most expensive wines, showing status, of course. So, Michelle said as Frederick left, now we can celebrate. As you know, I've been promoted. I am now a senior partner in the firm. Congratulations, darling, I smiled. I'm very proud of you. Thank you, Mom, he nodded. This is a big step. Now I will work with the most important clients of the firm, and of course my salary will increase significantly. We're thinking of buying a new house, Serenity put in. Riverside Gardens. Do you know that place, Winona? Riverside Gardens was an upscale neighborhood where houses started at several million. I knew it very well. In fact, I owned several properties there through Thorndike Enterprises. Yes, I've heard of it, I replied neutrally. It's a beautiful neighborhood. One of the most prestigious in the city, Serenity pointed out. Only successful people live there. And rich, Jason added with teenage candor. The houses there cost a lot of money. Jason, his mother snapped at him. Don't talk about money at the table. But you were just talking about the new house, the boy pointed out. Serenity gave him an annoyed look and changed the subject. By the way, Emily has received provisional admission to Princeton. Congratulations, dear. I turned to my granddaughter. That's wonderful. Emily looked embarrassed. It's not final yet, Grandma. And then half of my class applied to the Ivy League. But not everyone will get an invitation, Serenity pointed out. Only the very best. How's your brooch, Grandmother? Emily asked suddenly. The one you gave me. Mom said it was antique. Yes, it's a family heirloom. I was touched that she remembered. It was my grandmother's. It's very interesting, Emily said diplomatically. Not really my style, though. Emily prefers modern jewelry, Serenity interjected. You know, Winona, young people don't wear such old-fashioned things nowadays. I understand, I nodded. Fashions change, but some things have value regardless of fashion. Material value, perhaps, Serenity laughed, but not aesthetic value. Frederick brought appetizers, and the conversation temporarily broke down. I ordered the beet carpaccio with goat cheese, a light dish I loved. Serenity glanced at my plate. Winona, are you sure you should be eating cheese? With your cholesterol? My cholesterol is fine, dear, I replied calmly. My last test was good. She was clearly unhappy with my answer. Well, I'd still be careful if I were you. Health is so fragile at your age. Lovegood, who had been silent until then, suddenly raised his voice. Mama, are you taking all the medicine Dr. Stevens prescribed for you? Of course, honey. I cut off a piece of beet. I'm watching my health. Good, he nodded. Because, I can't take care of you if something happens. I've got too much work to do. And the kids are already hard enough with Veronica gone. Veronica, his ex-wife, left him 5 years ago. Since then, Lovegood had often used that as an excuse for everything from bad moods to not wanting to visit me. I understand, sweetheart, I said softly. Don't worry, I'm doing fine on my own. You might want to think about a nursing home, Michelle suddenly suggested. I heard about a new complex in the suburbs, Very decent place, good care. And there you'll be among people your own age. I looked at him with surprise. We hadn't even gotten to the main course, and he was already trying to send me to a nursing home. Thank you for your concern, Michelle, but I prefer to live on my own. I like my apartment and my neighborhood. But you're all alone there, he insisted. What if you fall, or you get sick at night? I have a phone, I smiled. And my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, often comes by to check on me. Mrs. Jenkins? Serenity snorted. She's older than you. Only 3 years older, I said, and she's very active for her age. Still, Michelle shook his head, it's not a solution. In a nursing home, you'll be taken care of by professionals. And we'll be able to visit you on a schedule, Serenity added with fake concern. Once a month, for example. It would be convenient for everyone. I took a sip of wine to hide my bitterness. Once a month, on a schedule, like a visit to the dentist. Let's discuss this another time, I suggested. Today we were celebrating Michelle's promotion. Yes, of course, he agreed, clearly pleased with the change of subject to his person. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit approached our table. Michelle Thorndyke? My son turned around and immediately brightened up. Robert, what an unexpected meeting. They shook hands. Michelle introduced him. Robert Greenwood, my new colleague. Robert, this is my family. He introduced Serenity, the children, Lovegood. When it was my turn, he hesitated for a moment. And this is my mother, Winona. Robert nodded politely at me, but it was obvious he wasn't interested in me. He immediately went back to talking to Michelle about some important client and an upcoming deal. Serenity, meanwhile, noticed a woman at one of the tables whom she seemed to know. She waved her hand and made a gesture inviting her to approach. The woman, an elegant blonde in her 40s, approached our table. Serenity, darling, what a surprise. They embraced like old friends. Serenity introduced her as Victoria Chase, the chairwoman of the charity she belonged to. Victoria proved to be chatty and loud, immediately engaging in conversation without noticing that she had interrupted our family dinner. Soon, our table became the center of a small social gathering. Robert and Victoria were joined by a couple more of Michelle's acquaintances, and they were all standing around, talking loudly and laughing. Serenity was beaming, clearly enjoying the attention. Lovegood reluctantly participated in the conversation, glancing at his watch from time to time. The children were left to their own devices and were starting to get frankly bored. I sat quietly, sipping my wine and watching the spectacle. None of the new arrivals even tried to include me in the conversation. Michelle and Serenity seemed completely oblivious to my existence. Frederick approached the table. Excuse me, may I suggest dessert? Michelle waved it away. Not at the moment. We're having a conversation. Victoria Chase finally noticed me. And you must be Serenity's mom? She asked with a polite smile. No, I'm Michelle's mother, I replied calmly. Oh, she looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, nice to meet you. Serenity hurried to intervene. Victoria is the head of the Bright Futures Charity Committee. We raise funds for disadvantaged children. That's very commendable, I said. Yes, we do important work, Victoria nodded. We had a gala last month and raised almost $1 million. I heard about that, I remarked. I think it was at the Continental Hotel? That's right. Victoria looked at me in surprise. Were you there? Before I could answer, Serenity laughed. Oh, no, Victoria. My mother-in-law doesn't go to these events. Tickets cost $1,000. I donated to your foundation, I said, anonymously. You did? Serenity looked at me incredulously. How much? It was an anonymous donation, dear, I smiled. The point is, no one knows how much or from whom. Victoria looked puzzled, but quickly changed the subject, returning to her conversation with Serenity. I noticed Amanda quietly tugging on her father's sleeve. Daddy, I need to go to the bathroom, she whispered. Lovegood frowned. This isn't the time, Amanda. Just wait a little while. But I really need to, the girl insisted. I can show her where the restroom is, I offered. Lovegood nodded with relief, and Amanda and I got up from the table. None of the adults even noticed us leaving. They were too engrossed in the conversation. I escorted Amanda to the ladies' room, an elegant space with marble sinks and fresh flowers. When she stepped out of the stall, she lingered at the mirror, examining herself. Grandma, have you really been here before? She asked. Yes, honey. I smiled at her in the mirror. Many times. I like it here. She ran her hand along the marble countertop. It's beautiful, and the food is good. I'm glad you like it, I stroked her hair. You've grown a lot since the last time I saw you. Dad says we can't visit you often because you live far away and he has a lot of work, Amanda said with childlike candor. Is that true? Not really, honey, I sighed. I don't live that far away, but your daddy does have a lot of work to do. And he also says you're not feeling well and you need to rest. That's not really true either, I smiled. I feel fine for my age. We walked back to the table. The group of Michelle and Serenity's friends had grown even larger during our absence. There were now 10 people standing around the table, talking loudly and laughing. Our seats were taken, and I stopped some distance away, holding Amanda's hand. Lovegood noticed us and walked over. Amanda, go to Oliver, he said. He's over there with Jason and Emily. The kids were sitting at the far end of the table, clearly bored and playing on their phones. Amanda reluctantly walked toward them, looking back at me. It's getting too noisy in here, Lovegood said, turning to me. Maybe you should go home, Mom. You look tired. I'm fine, I replied. And there was no dessert yet. Dessert? He shook his head. I don't think we'll be ordering it. This meeting with Michelle's coworkers might take a while. At that moment, Serenity came up, staggering a little. Apparently, she'd had more to drink than usual. Oh, there you are! She grabbed Lovegood's arm. Robert invites everyone to the Skyline Bar after dinner. There's a famous jazz band playing there tonight. Everyone? Lovegood said, glancing at me. Well, all the adults. Serenity giggled. We'll leave the kids with the nanny. I've already called her. She'll be here in half an hour. What about Mom? Lovegood asked quietly. Serenity only now seemed to notice me. Oh, Winona. Well, I don't think you'll like the bar. It'll be noisy, lots of people. Besides, it's a place for, more modern people. I understand, I nodded. Don't worry about me. I can call a cab. Oh, good! Serenity glowed. I knew you would understand. Michelle finally noticed our conversation and came over. What's the matter? He asked. Your mom is going home, Serenity explained. We're going to Skyline after dinner. Oh, yeah, he nodded in relief. That's the right thing to do. You won't like it there, Mom. It's too noisy for you. I wasn't asking for it, I pointed out. Of course not. He patted my shoulder indulgently. You've never been much of a party girl, not even when you were young, as far as I could remember. I wonder what he could remember. When Michelle was a child, Harold and I used to have parties a lot, but I guess childhood memory is selective. I'll call you a cab, Lovegood offered, pulling out his cell phone. No need, I stopped him. I can manage on my own. Whatever you say, he shrugged, and immediately turned back to Michelle's group. I stepped aside, wondering what to do. Part of me wanted to just leave. Another part insisted that I should stay and teach them a lesson. The third, the wisest part, said the best thing to do now was to actually call a cab and go home. Tomorrow would be a new day, and I could think about the situation with a fresh head. I pulled out my phone and was about to dial a cab when I noticed Dorian walking across the hall with a concerned expression on his face. He wasn't alone. He was followed by Frederick, our waiter, and another young man in a waiter's uniform whom I didn't know. Dorian saw me and immediately headed in my direction. I could tell by the look on his face that something was wrong. Is there a problem? I asked quietly as he approached. A small one. He leaned toward me, speaking almost in a whisper. One of the guests in the main room claims he was served a spoiled dish. He's scandalized and is demanding the owner of the restaurant. Raymond can't solve this problem? Raymond is furious and ready to throw the customer out on the street. I had to break them up. I'm afraid I can't do without you. I sighed. That's all I needed. Okay, I'll be right there, I said. I'll just get my bag. My bag remained on the chair by the table where Michelle's friends were now seated. I walked over, trying not to attract attention, but Michelle saw me. Mom, are you still here? He sounded impatient. I was just leaving, honey, just getting my bag. I grabbed my purse from the chair. I thought you'd called a cab by now. He frowned. I was just about to. I smiled, trying to look serene. But I think I'm in for a little adventure. An adventure? He grinned. At your age? Age is no barrier to adventure, Michelle. I turned to Dorian, who was waiting patiently nearby. Well, take me to our disgruntled guest. Dorian nodded and moved toward the main hall. I followed him, feeling my son's surprised gaze on me. The main hall was full of guests. Most of them were peacefully enjoying their dinner, but there was a group of people in the far corner, including a red-faced man who was loudly expressing his displeasure. "This is outrageous!" he shouted. "I pay mad money for dinner and they serve me rotten fish." Raymond, our chef, stood nearby, restrained by two waiters. His face was contorted with anger. "My fish can't be rotten," he bellowed in a strong French accent. "I personally check all the products. You don't understand anything about haute cuisine." "Haute cuisine?" the man laughed. "I've eaten in the best restaurants in the world, and nowhere have I ever been served such disgusting food." I approached them, keeping my composure. "Good evening," I said softly. "What's the problem?" The man turned to me. "And who are you?" "My name is Winona Thorndyke," I replied. "What can I do for you?" "I need the owner of the restaurant, not some—" He hesitated, apparently not wanting to insult an old woman in front of witnesses. "I am the owner of the restaurant," I said calmly. There was silence for a moment. The man stared at me incredulously. Raymond stopped pulling himself out of the waiter's grasp. Dorian stood nearby, ready to intervene if necessary. "You?" the man finally spoke. "Are you the owner of the Aurora?" "That's right," I smiled. "Now please tell me what was wrong." The man was a little confused, but quickly pulled himself together. "I was served spoiled fish," he said, not so confidently. "It has a strange smell and taste." "It's a special marinade," shouted Raymond. "It's a specialty recipe." "Raymond, please." I raised my hand, stopping him. "Let me take a look at the dish." The waiter handed me a plate with a half-eaten dish. I examined the fish closely, then sniffed it carefully. "You're right," I said to the man. "It does smell unusual, but it's not spoiled fish. It's a special cooking method that uses a fermented sauce. The flavor is very specific, not everyone likes it. We should have warned you about that when you ordered." The man looked at me incredulously. "Are you sure it's not spoiled?" "Absolutely," I nodded. "But if you don't like the taste, we'll be happy to replace it with anything else on the menu. On the house, of course." The man hesitated. "Well, if you say so." "I insist." I turned to the waiter. "Please bring the gentleman a menu and a glass of our finest wine to apologize for the misunderstanding." The waiter nodded and went to do his errand. Raymond still looked offended, but he no longer tried to lash out at the customer. "Thank you for your understanding," I said to the man. "We value our guests very much and always strive to make their experience in our restaurant extremely positive." "Yes, well," the man adjusted his tie. "I apologize for the noise. I'm just not used to such, exotic tastes." "That's all right," I smiled. "I hope you'll like the next course better." I was about to leave when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Mom?" When I turned around, I saw Michelle. He stood a few feet away from me with a look of utter bewilderment on his face. Serenity stood next to him, her mouth open in surprise. Lovegood loomed a little farther away, frowning her eyebrows in incomprehension. "Hello, Michelle," I said calmly. "Is something wrong?" "Yeah, we—" he stammered. "This man called you the owner of the restaurant." "Yes, that's right," I nodded. "But that's impossible," he laughed nervously. "You can't be the owner of Aurora. It's one of the most expensive restaurants in town." "And yet," I shrugged. Serenity stepped closer, her eyes narrowed. "What kind of joke is this, Winona?" she asked sharply. "Are you trying to make fools of us?" "Not at all," I replied. "Just solving a little problem with a client." "Mrs. Thorndyke does own the restaurant." Dorian stepped forward. "Let me introduce myself. Dorian Flinch, the manager. I've been working for your mother for 10 years. Michelle looked from me to Dorian and back again. "But how? When? Why didn't you say anything?" "Did you ask?" I looked him in the eye. Lovegood came over to us, his face a mixture of surprise and disbelief. This is some kind of mistake, he said, or a prank. Mom can't own a restaurant. She doesn't have that kind of money. How do you know what kind of money I have, Lovegood? I asked. Have you ever taken an interest in my finances? Or did you just assume I was a poor widow living on a pension? But he looked at Michelle confused. Dad didn't leave you that much money. We know what was in the will. You only know what was in his personal will, I replied. But Thorndike Enterprises belongs to me. Always has. Your father and I were equal partners in the business. Thorndike Enterprises? Michelle turned pale. The same company that owns half the real estate downtown? That's right, I nodded, including this building. Serenity made a strange sound, something between a chuckle and a sob. It can't be, she whispered. You've been pretending to be a poor old woman all this time? Why? I never said I was poor, I remarked. You made up your own mind, and I didn't refute your assumptions. But why? Michelle looked confused. Why did you keep it from us? I sighed. When your father died, you were both so busy dividing up the inheritance that you didn't even notice how much I was grieving. You, Michelle, insisted that I sell the house and move into a nursing home for my own good. You, Lovegood, wanted me to give you control of the company, thinking I couldn't handle the business. They were silent, not looking at me. I decided to see how you would treat me if you thought I was poor and dependent on you, I continued. And I learned a lot of interesting things about my children. It's not fair, Lovegood muttered. You've been lying to us. I just didn't tell you my business, I countered. Just like you didn't tell me about yours. When was the last time you took an interest in my life, Lovegood? Or did you, Michelle? You invited me to visit out of a sense of duty, tolerated my presence, and then said goodbye with relief. That's not true, Michelle shook his head. We cared about you. Did you? I raised an eyebrow. Then why did you all decide a few minutes ago that I should go home because I wouldn't fit in with you? Why did you never ask about my interests, my friends, my life? Why did you always talk to me condescendingly, like I was a child or someone who was not right in the head? We didn't, Michelle began, but Serenity interrupted him. All right, she said, coming to her senses. You're rich. You own a restaurant. What's next? What do you want? I don't want anything, Serenity, I replied calmly. I'm just solving a problem with a customer in my restaurant, and you can go on with your evening. As I recall, you were going to Skyline after dinner. Are you kidding me? Serenity raised her voice. After such a revelation, you think we're just going to go on with the evening as normal? What's changed? I shrugged. I'm still the same Winona Thorndike, your mother and mother-in-law. It's just that now you know I'm not a poor old lady to be sent home in a cab when she becomes a burden. Frederick came up to us. Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Thorndike, he said. The customer at table 5 is asking for the bill. Thank you, Frederick, I nodded. Dorian will take care of it. Frederick left, and Dorian stepped aside to settle the bill. The 4 of us were left, me, Michelle, Serenity, and Lovegood standing in the middle of the restaurant, attracting the attention of the other customers. Could we continue this conversation in my office? I suggested. There are too many eyes and ears in here. Michelle nodded silently. Serenity pressed her lips together, but agreed as well. Lovegood looked like he'd rather be anywhere but here. Follow me, I said, and headed for the inconspicuous door at the end of the hall that led to the staff quarters. My office was small but elegantly furnished. A dark wood desk, comfortable chairs, a few paintings on the walls. Originals, not reproductions, though the children could hardly tell. On the table was a photograph of Harold and me on the opening day of the Aurora, 25 years ago. I sat down at the table, gesturing for the children to take seats in the chairs opposite. They sat down looking unsure and uncomfortable. So, I began, now you know the truth, or part of the truth. After your father died, I took control of Thorndike Enterprises. Harold and I were always partners in business, even though he was the public face of the company. I preferred to stay in the shadows. But why didn't you tell us? Michelle asked. We are your children. We had a right to know. Had the right? I raised my eyebrows. To what exactly? To my money? No, of course not, he shook his head. But we could help you, advise you. I didn't need help, Michelle, I smiled. I was doing fine on my own. And I still am. But why the game? Serenity looked hurt. Why pretend to be poor? To make fun of us? Not at you, but at your attitude toward me, I replied. When you thought I was a helpless old woman, you treated me accordingly with slight contempt, with impatience, with pity. That told me a great deal about you. And what did you learn? Lovegood asked quietly. That to you I ceased to be human, I said bluntly. I became just a mother or mother-in-law. A duty to be remembered on holidays. You never asked me what I lived, what I was interested in, what I thought about. You assumed you knew everything about me and didn't bother to find out more. They were silent, not looking at me. I don't blame you, I continued more gently. It's the way of the world. Old people become invisible. They are tolerated and cared for, but they are not seen as individuals with their own desires, dreams, passions. Forgive us, Mom, Michelle finally said. I didn't realize I was doing it. I know, honey, I smiled at him. That's why I'm not mad at you. I just want you to understand. I'm still here. I'm still Winona Thorndike, a woman who loves life, appreciates beauty, runs a business, and, yes, owns a restaurant. So what now? Serenity asked. What's going to change? It's up to you. I looked at them in turn. I'm not asking for much, just a little respect, a little attention, a little genuine interest. If you can give me that, I'll be happy. They looked at each other, not knowing what to say. What about children? Lovegood asked. Should they know that their grandmother is a rich businesswoman? You can tell them if you want, I shrugged. But I don't think it's that important. I'm just a grandmother to them, and I always will be, no matter how big my bank account is. Are you really not mad at us? Michelle asked incredulously. Little angry, I admitted. Especially when you tried to get me out of the restaurant so I wouldn't ruin your evening. But overall, no, I'm not mad. I just want us to start over. Like a real family. Lovegood suddenly laughed. You know, Mother, he said, shaking his head, you've always been the most unpredictable of us. Even as a child, I could never guess what you would do next. I take that as a compliment, I smiled. It is a compliment, he nodded. Yeah, I'm sorry I've been so aloof. After Veronica left, I just closed myself off from everyone. I understand, sweetheart. I reached out and touched his palm. But maybe you should open up to your mother, at least. He squeezed my hand and nodded without saying a word. Michelle looked thoughtful. Mom, I have to ask, how many things are you hiding from us? Is there still something we don't know about? I laughed. Oh, Michelle, every person is a universe of secrets. But if you're asking about material things, no more secret businesses or hidden treasures. Just Thorndike Enterprises, Aurora, and a few other investments. A few other investments? Serenity repeated, still looking stunned. You speak of it so mundanely. Because it is mundane to me, dear, I smiled at her. Just like your charity committees are to you. It was a week after that memorable evening at the Aurora. A week of silence and reflection for all of us. Neither Michelle nor Lovegood called me. Perhaps they needed time to process what had happened. I didn't rush them, going about my usual business, running the company, checking on the restaurant, meeting with business associates. On Thursday, I got a call from Serenity, the first time in all the years we'd known each other that she'd initiated the conversation. Winona? Her voice sounded unsure. It's Serenity. Hello, darling. I tried to speak calmly, though I was surprised. How are you? Yeah, well, she stammered. Winona, we'd like to invite you to lunch this Sunday. If you're not busy, of course. Lunch? I smiled into the phone. I'd love to. At your place? Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Michelle really wants to talk to you. And so do the kids. Emily's been literally bombarding us with questions about you all week. I can imagine, I laughed. What did you tell them? The truth, she answered simply. That you own a business and a restaurant. That we didn't know about it before. I see. What time is lunch? 12 o'clock. But you can come earlier if you want. Thank you, Serenity. I'll be there at 12. After that conversation, I sat in my office for a long time, staring out the window at the busy street below. Something had changed in Serenity's voice. The usual condescension, the arrogance was gone. Perhaps our exposure had really made them reconsider their attitude toward me. Or maybe they were just digesting the fact that their poor mother turned out to be a very wealthy woman. On Friday, Lovegood called. Unlike his sister-in-law, he didn't beat around the bush. "Mom, I acted like an idiot," he said without preamble. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, Lovegood," I replied softly. "You didn't know." "It's not that I didn't know about your business," he countered. "It's about the way I've treated you over the years, like you didn't matter anymore." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Lovegood had always been the more closed off of my sons, less likely to show emotion. "Thank you for saying that," I said quietly. "It means a lot to me." "I want the children to get to know you better," he continued. "The real you. Not just Grandma, but Winona Thorndyke, the woman who built an empire." "Don't exaggerate," I grinned. "It's not an empire, just a good, stable business." "Whatever," I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'm proud of you, Mom, and I wish I'd told you that before." After that conversation, I felt a little lighter on my soul. Perhaps our family really could start over, on a more honest basis. At 12 sharp on Sunday, I pulled up to Michelle and Serenity's house, a large mansion in an upscale neighborhood. I arrived in my company car with a driver, determined not to hide my status any longer. I was dressed simply but elegantly, in a suit from a famous designer, with the pearl necklace and earrings Harold had given me for our 40th anniversary. The door was opened by Michelle. He looked a little tense, but genuinely pleased. "Mom." He gave me a hug, which hadn't happened very often in recent years. "I'm glad you came." "Thanks for the invitation," I smiled as I walked into the house. The others were waiting for us in the living room. Serenity, unusually modest in a simple but expensive dress. Emily and Jason suddenly interested in their grandmother. And, to my surprise, Lovegood and the twins. I hadn't expected to see them all together. "Grandma!" Amanda was the first to rush over to me. "Is it true you own the restaurant?" "Yes, sweetheart," I hugged her. "And not just the restaurant." "Tell me," Oliver demanded, coming closer. "Dad said you have a whole company." I looked at Lovegood and he shrugged with a slight smile. "The kids have a right to know what an amazing grandmother they have," he said. We walked to the dining room where lunch was served. Not as elaborate as the one at the Aurora, but decent enough. Serenity was clearly trying to impress, though I noticed a few homemade dishes. She'd never been much of a cook. At the table, the conversation didn't flow at first. Everyone was too polite, too cautious, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. But gradually, with the help of the children, the atmosphere became more relaxed. "Grandma, how did you become a restaurant owner?" Emily asked, putting on her salad. "Your grandfather and I always wanted to open a restaurant," I answered. "Harold loved good food, and I loved creating a cozy atmosphere. When our real estate business began to bring in a steady income, we decided to realize that dream." "Why didn't you ever tell us?" Jason's voice sounded genuinely interested. I paused, searching for words. "At first, it was just a part of my life that no one asked about. Then, after your grandfather died, it became a kind of experiment to see how people felt about an older woman who was considered a grandmother, not a successful businesswoman." "And how were you treated?" Michelle asked quietly. "In different ways," I looked him in the eye, "but often condescending. As if with age I had lost the right to be a full-fledged person with my own interests, opinions, desires." There was silence at the table. Even the children stopped talking, sensing the seriousness of the moment. "I'm sorry, Mom," Michelle finally said. "I didn't realize I was doing it." "I know, honey," I smiled at him. "Most people don't realize. It's just the way society often perceives older people." "But things will be different now," Serenity said with unexpected firmness. "We'll treat you with the respect you deserve." I looked at her in surprise. Of all the family members, Serenity was the one I least expected to change. "Thank you, darling," I said sincerely. "It means a lot to me." "Can we come and visit you?" Amanda asked. "To your real house, not that little apartment." "Of course, honey," I smiled. "I have a penthouse downtown. I think you'll love the view from the terrace." "Penthouse," Oliver said excitedly. "Cool." "I also have a country house," I added, "with a pool and a garden. Maybe this summer you could all go there for the weekend. With a pool? Jason perked up. Could we invite some friends over? Jason! Serenity snapped at him. Don't be so cavalier. It's okay, I laughed. It's a big house, so there's plenty of room for everyone. And yes, Jason, you can invite your friends if your parents don't mind. Lunch continued, and gradually the conversation became more natural. The kids peppered me with questions about the business, about the restaurant, about my youth. I answered honestly, not hiding any more details of my life. Michelle and Lovegood listened more than they talked, apparently still digesting the fact that their mother was not at all what they had imagined her to be. After dinner, when the children had run off to play in the garden and Serenity was busy making coffee, the three of us, my sons and I, stayed in the living room. Mother, Michelle began, nervously adjusting his tie. We would like to, I'd like to apologize for all these years, for the way I've treated you. And so have I, Lovegood added. We've been inconsiderate. It's okay. I looked at them lovingly. You are my children, and I will always love you, no matter how you treat me. But it's wrong, Michelle objected. We should have been better. I should have been better. We all make mistakes, I said softly. The important thing is that we learn from them. We want to make things right, Lovegood stepped forward. To start over, to be a real family. I smiled, but inside I felt a slight sadness. Could we really make things right? Could we forget the years of neglect, the condescension, the alienation? I wasn't sure. Let's just move forward, I suggested. Day by day. No big promises, just, be more attentive to each other. They nodded, and I saw understanding in their eyes. They knew that not everything could be fixed with one conversation, one meal. That trust and respect had to be earned all over again. Serenity returned with coffee and dessert, a store-bought tiramisu that she tried to pass off as homemade. I pretended not to notice the pastry label she'd forgotten to remove. I was wondering, Serenity said, pouring coffee, if you could give me some investment advice. I have some small savings and I'd like to invest them properly. I looked at her with surprise. She had never asked my opinion on anything before. Of course, I replied. I'd love to. And also, she paused. I'd like to invite you to the next meeting of our charity committee. Your experience in business could be very useful. Thank you, Serenity, I smiled. I'll think about it. I could see her trying to make a relationship work. It was clumsy but sincere, and I appreciated her efforts. The kids came back from the street, noisy and excited. Grandma, Grandma! Amanda ran up to me. Can you teach me how to run a business? I want to be a businesswoman when I grow up, too. If you want to, of course. I patted her on the head. But it takes a lot of work and study. I'm not afraid of work, she said seriously. Daddy says I'm very stubborn, just like you. Lovegood coughed embarrassedly, but I only laughed. Your dad's right. Stubbornness can be a useful quality if you channel it in the right direction. I want to work in a restaurant, Oliver said. Can I wait there during the summer vacation? It's too early for you to work, argued Lovegood. But maybe you could spend a day or two there, see how things work. If grandmother doesn't mind, of course. I'm all for it, I nodded. All children would be welcome at the Aurora. Maybe Raymond could even teach you a few cooking tricks. Raymond? Jason asked. Our chef, I explained. He's French, a little hot-tempered, but brilliant. Cool. Jason turned to his mother. Can I come too, Mom? If Grandma invites you, of course, Serenity said, giving me a grateful look. I could see my grandchildren's eyes lighting up, how they suddenly saw me not just as an old woman, but as someone with an interesting life, with stories to tell, experiences to share. It was gratifying, revitalizing. When it was time to leave, everyone came out to see me off. My driver was waiting by the car. Wow, you have a personal driver? Oliver asked admiringly. Yes, I smiled. His name is Thomas, and he's been with me for 8 years. Can I go for a ride with you sometime? Amanda looked at me with pleading eyes. Sure, honey. Next time I'll pick you up and we'll go to a restaurant together, or the park, wherever you want to go. She brightened up and gave me a big hug. The other kids hugged me goodbye too, even Emily, who was usually so reserved. Michelle walked me to the car. Thanks for coming, Mom, he said. It was important to us. For me, too. I squeezed his hand. We'll try harder, he promised. To be better. To see you for who you are. I know. I kissed his cheek. And I'm going to try too. To be more open. To not hide parts of my life. He helped me into the car, and I waved to everyone as Thomas pulled away. On the way home, I reflected on the day we had spent. It hadn't been a perfect family dinner. Too much awkwardness, too many unspoken grievances, too many attempts to impress. But it was a beginning. The first step toward something new, something healthier. I wasn't fooling myself. I knew that Serenity would probably never become a truly close person to me. That Michelle would always be a bit aloof, too consumed with her career and status. That Lovegood, despite his current openness, might become withdrawn again, as he had done after his wife left. But I also saw hope. In the eyes of his grandchildren, in Serenity's clumsy attempts to mend relationships, in his son's sincere remorse. Maybe we would never be the perfect, tight-knit family from the commercials. But we could be better than we were. We could learn to see each other. To truly see each other, not just see through the prism of our own expectations and preconceptions. As we pulled up to my house, I thought back to that night in Aurora, of the shock on the kids' faces when they learned the truth, the sudden respect in my grandchildren's eyes, of Serenity's confusion, of Michelle's confusion, of Lovegood's silent understanding. Back then, in the restaurant, I didn't know how it would end. I was afraid that revealing the truth would only widen the gulf between us, that they'd resent me for deceiving them, for being secretive. But maybe sometimes it takes a jolt to get people to see things differently, to stop taking for granted what was always in front of their eyes. I got out of the car, thanked Thomas, and went up to my penthouse. Evening Millville spread out before me, sparkling with lights. My city, my life, and my family, imperfect, complicated, but still mine. There was a lot of work ahead, lots of conversations, lots of moments of awkwardness, lots of trial and error. But I was ready for it. After all, I hadn't lived 78 years for nothing. I knew that nothing worthwhile comes easy. The next day I called Dorian. "How was lunch?" he asked curiously. "Not bad," I replied. "Better than I expected." "Did they repent and apologize on their knees?" He grinned. "Not exactly." I smiled into the phone. "But there's been progress, especially with the grandchildren." "And what about Serenity? Does she still see you as a hindrance to her ideal social image?" "She's trying," I said thoughtfully, "in her own way. I think it takes her a while to get used to the idea that I'm not just a mother-in-law, but a successful businesswoman." "I think she liked the idea of a poor old lady to be pitied and condescended to," Dorian said. "Maybe," I agreed. "But people can change. Sometimes they just need a good push." "And you gave them that push," he laughed, in his own quiet but effective way. "I just wanted them to see me," I said seriously. "The real me, not the image they'd created in their heads." "And did they?" "I think they started to see," I sighed. "It's a process, Dorian. A long process." "Well, you have time," he said. "And patience. And most importantly, love for them, no matter what." "Yes," I smiled. "Exactly." After the conversation, I went out onto the terrace. The spring sun caressed my face, a light breeze played with my hair. Life went on, my life, full, rich, with all its ups and downs, joys and sorrows, and my family was a part of that life, imperfect but real. There were new days ahead, new conversations, new opportunities for understanding and forgiveness. A new beginning for all of us.